The following podcast contains spoilers. Home base, like Noob and Solo Talk Anime Podcast, episode number 1. No Guns Life. So basically, this is a anime. It's based off the same manga that was in Ultra Jump back in 2014. This anime adaptation, it was done by Madhouse, and it originally aired from October-December of 2019. And it was simuldubbed on Funimation, but the sub-only version was available on Hulu. So how did you actually watch it?
I basically I binge watched all of it in like 2 days.
Did you watch it in English or Japanese?
I watched it in English.
See, I had to
Uh,
watch it on Hulu, so I saw it all in Japanese with subtitles. So I wonder if our opinions are different because of that.
Maybe I don't really think so though, because I don't think my because a lot of like I mean I'll be honest with you, I did not overall like it, but I don't. It's not really because of anything with the voice acting or even really with the characters. It was just overall the story in general. I actually thought was just kind of boring.
Yeah,
Like
well, I guess we
and
can just jump into the overall impressions of it, because I kind of feel very similarly to you. I did think it
yeah.
was pretty boring, and I feel like the story didn't really go anywhere in the full 12 episodes.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like that's the thing too. Is like, if it seems like it seems like it was built like at least at the start, it was trying to build up to be more of like a serialized anime that had one continuing story, like an overarching story that drove like the motivations of the characters in each episode, and it ended up being more like just an episodic type of thing, where it's like each episode didn't really seem to affect any other episode in any meaningful way. Um, and on top of that, like it didn't really seem like characters like had any real motivations for doing anything. Um, and like that would work great in a show like maybe like Family Guy or The Simpsons, where it's like each episode is basically its own thing. But in this, I was like, you have all this backstory. They set up like what I thought was an interesting world. I like the cyberpunk noir mix that they were doing with it.
Yeah.
I like the idea of the extended. They felt like what are the names of those like those robot things from like Blade Runner. The I
Yeah, I
don't
know what
remember.
you're talking about, but I don't
Yeah,
remember what they're
yeah,
called either.
yeah. But it seemed like they were like that. But like yeah, with just like more like enhancements and stuff, or maybe something like the augmented and Deus Ex and stuff. But it's like outside of setting up this really interesting world, they had some really interesting characters, and then they do nothing with it. Like Jizo or whatever. Like I thought he was going to be a really interesting character. He could have been. I mean, he was an interesting character, but he could have been more interesting if they had like fleshed out his backstory more. Why did he get the enhancements that he had? They don't ever
Yeah.
touch that at
Well,
all.
that's the thing. I think the biggest problem with it is that they're doing 12 episodes, and from what I hear, the second part is going to be the next 12 episodes. That's going to come out in April of this year. But and that's going to be the whole series. I don't think this is going to. I think it's going to be 24 episodes. And the manga, from what I'm aware of, is still ongoing, too. So I don't really know. Like,
Well, if you're talking about 24 episodes, like so the 12 episodes they have now plus another 12.
yeah, and that's going to be the whole series, from
But
what I understand.
that still doesn't justify the fact that they wasted 12 episodes
Well,
not telling a story.
Well, that's the thing though. I just because the manga's still ongoing, so I don't really know where this show is kind of headed. Because I feel like the if the manga series is going to be wrapped up in 24 episodes, or the anime series is going to be wrapped up in 24 episodes, and the manga doesn't even have an ending, this is going to be one of those animes that has like a original video animation ending, you know. So they're going to have to change some things. So I don't know how true to the manga this is. I don't know because like a part of me wanted to check out the manga after this, but I don't even know if I will be watching this part two of this at this point. Honestly,
Honestly, I don't have any interest in really wanting to watch part two either, because it's like they had 12 episodes. I mean, like normally, like if we were like I was saying earlier, if we weren't doing this podcast, I would have given most anime 3 episodes, and then I would have said if it didn't draw me in 3 episodes, I was like, okay, I'm done, moving on to something else. I gave this 12 episodes, and in 12 episodes by the time I got to episode 12, I was still having to force myself to watch it because I was like, I don't like these characters don't have any real motivations that are like driving them. Like you don't really know anything about anybody's backstory except for little blurbs, and they focus most of like the backstory that they do tell in the show on exposition dumps about
Yeah.
like the world and stuff. Like why are two characters that know about certain events talking to each other about these events like they're teaching somebody in school about them or something? Like that's not an organic way of telling a story. Like those parts that like there's parts in every like several episodes where like I remember when Olivier and Jizo or whatever they were talking to each other about some event that like something where the overextended, which are the guys in the show that have beyond normal extensions, like the main character Jizo. Like they were talking about how the overextended have to have these licenses to be able to go around in public and stuff, and how if they break laws they'll get captured and disassembled and stuff. And they were talking to each other about it like they didn't know the other person already knew it.
Yeah. Yeah,
Like
it was
I was
kind
like,
of weird. There was a lot of moments that were like that. It's kind of I like what they did with the world and setting up just the idea of like the cyborg society, and like I heard a lot of things about the show going up to watching it that were talking about how this show is like a deep like you know oh, this is what society could be like if capitalism and like everything took over, and I just feel like it's not as deep as that as some people have looked into
well,
it.
yeah, I mean, the closest thing I can compare to because you've played Deus Ex, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like that's the closest thing I could compare it to, and it seems like that's basically like the same thing they were trying to do. But in Deus Ex, they set up that backstory and they set up the world and like but the thing is they also give the characters motivations for like what they want to do in that world. The characters in the show. What is like I'm guessing Jizo's main motivation is just making money, but he doesn't get paid by a
Well,
single client in all 12 episodes.
Well, we see on screen though. I mean, it's implied that
Well,
he's getting payments for some of his jobs.
well, think about it. He gets ripped off. He intentionally gets ripped off on a lot of his jobs. So so his for instance, he works for a Tetsuro. At first, like helping save Tetsuro. Tetsuro doesn't ever have the money to pay him. Then he does the thing for Olivier, but he's basically doing it for her because he's forced to. So he's not gonna get paid for that, obviously. And then in the very last episode he had a client that was paying him to hunt a ghost.
Yeah, I know. And what a terrible way to end the first part of the series, right? Like there should have been some kind of cliffhanger to make us want to come back, because that episode I think was probably one of the worst episodes of the whole series, and
Oh,
it was
it
the
was the
it was
worst.
it was the last one right before the break. So they really didn't grip me to come back at this point because I just don't care. I mean, like you said, like the characters they're cool. Like there's a lot of good moments. Um, but I feel like the show's concept might have just been like, I want to draw a dude with a gun on his head and let's build a story around it. Like,
I mean, I do love the character design. Like I thought Jizo, like the gun slave design in general. I thought it was kind of stupid before I watched it, but when you watch the show, it's like, yeah, this is an awesome like design. I thought some of the other overextended like that spider like chick, and like it was like episode 2 or 3 or whatever. I thought she had a decent design. Um, but then like you get to the characters' personalities. Like a lot of the characters, even like some of the best designed characters, their personalities are like meh. Like Tetsuro, I
yeah,
hate Tetsuro as a character.
I really do too. And another thing is, like the episode where he takes over his body, like one of the early episodes, I think the whole time I was just very annoyed. And I guess that's the point, but it was just so stupid. And I was just, I couldn't really enjoy it at all.
And then on top of that, like Jizo seems to just instantly like he's like well, after Tetsuro takes over his body, after Jizo gets his control of his body back, he just forgives Tetsuro. He's like,
Yeah.
you know what, you used me as a tool, but I'm gonna let it slide this time. I'm like, you're supposed to be this badass noir cyberpunk like private eye or whatever that like resolves like issues amongst other extended in the city, and like like, come on, dude. Like, I like, I was expecting him to like, really be pissed or really drive home, like how degrading it was to have your body just being used as like a tool for somebody else to accomplish their objective, which was the main thing. Tetsuro was like, it goes against everything that Tetsuro's like character is built on, which is like he didn't want to be used as a tool himself, and then he becomes the main guy using other characters in like several episodes as a tool with that harmony device or
Harmony,
whatever.
yeah.
Yeah, like harmony allows him to like take over other extended and control their bodies and stuff, but
Yeah,
it's basically allowing him to do the same thing that he said he didn't want other people to do to him. And it just kind of destroys him as a character even more so than the fact that his personality is just complete shit anyway. But
well, I mean, he's not really going to have much of a personality because from what we are led to believe, he really didn't have much of a childhood. He was just being experimented on. Like, and Juzo, he doesn't even have a backstory because he doesn't remember his backstory. So I don't know if they're hinting at him remembering eventually, or because there's so many like minor things that they foreshadow.
well, what I predict is that they'll probably start like maybe like diving more into his backstory in like episode 20 or something. But by then, are you
Mm-hmm.
really gonna care?
Yeah, and that's the thing. There was someone in the chat here. They said that they were baited into watching the first episode. I mean, I kind of feel the same way. The marketing seemed interesting. That's the only reason I picked this to watch, anyways, just because it looked like it could be something more. It kind of reminded me of I don't know if you've ever seen Gunslinger Girl.
No.
It kind of had that same vibe of kind of like a worn-torn conflict, and there's a little bit of like Ghost in the Shell vibes from some things. What do you think of like the overall animation style though? Like there's some.
Oh, the animation was great.
Well, there's
Oh
some
my
mixed
god.
like CG scenes. Do you not feel like some of
Yeah,
that
but
was a little?
I thought that they did a really good job of mixing the CG with the traditional drawing and stuff, and like it seemed like seamless. I like from what I saw, I'm guessing a lot of the CG stuff you actually used the Unreal Engine for,
Yeah, they
which
did.
it I thought they did a really good job with the animation. Like the show looks incredible. I like the overall. I like a lot of the environment designs. I like the especially like the scenes with the car, like where they're driving a car and stuff. Like I don't even remember that one detective dude's name, but like remember like his really nice car and them driving through the city and stuff.
Yeah.
I thought that was awesome. The animation in the show looks great. I like I said before, I like a lot of the character designs. Uh, I just like I wish they had done more with it, like with that too, because like there's only like you only see like maybe 3 or 4 different backdrops throughout the entire show for the most part.
Yeah, they keep going back to the home base like a lot, and then they'll
I mean, I felt
start
like it was
there.
a wasted opportunity to show off more of this really big like futuristic cyberpunk industrialized city and stuff,
And
and I wanted
well,
to see more of that
here's
world.
a question for you. So do you at the end of watching all 12 episodes, do you understand the structure of the world? Because I'm still a little confused on which organization runs which thing. I get
I
like,
got that Baruin or whatever that organization is. They seem to be like pretty much. I mean, they
are they
seem to be a
the
private corporation that pretty much controls the cogs of
but
government in this
yeah,
world.
so that's what I'm thinking. So it's like they're like a private company that kind of took over like the government because they created the extendeds in the first place.
Yeah,
Is that what we're meant to
that's
believe?
what I was understanding too.
And
And it's like the government, I guess, would be represented by like there was like two like law enforcement agencies. There was the EMS, and then there was like that like was it the security group or whatever. So Olivier, she was like the director of like I think EMS.
but I'm saying like who's over the EMS though? Like who's the council that was over her?
It
Like
seemed like it was
are they
like
the
the people
actual
who
government?
controlled Baruin. It seemed like just the people who
No.
controlled Baruin itself.
No, the
So
people
like,
that control them were in this. That's like the CEO and all of them on that giant robot inside their headquarters.
yeah, I mean, I felt like I mean I
Aren't
thought that
those
they
two
were the ones
separate
that were
things? Like I thought,
that they're supposed to be.
but like
But
their corruption. I don't think they're the same people though. I feel like in the shadows they kind of control things, but then they have like conflicts with each other and they don't like each other. So I don't. I feel like there's just corruption there. It's just really kind of confusing. It's not explained
it's
well.
it's not it's not explained well. Even though that like I'd say like at least 50% of like the first half of the series so far is exposition dumps where they
Well,
do
and then
nothing but explain it.
there's the
But
two other factions. There's like the radical like anti-extended faction, and then there's the like extended like underground faction that are
oh, was
also
that
in
the
the show.
terrorist group that that one dude worked
Yeah,
for?
in the later episode, they're like, and they had them in the earlier episodes, just kind of setting it up, but they don't really go anywhere with it, and I just didn't feel like they did good enough a job. This kind of story kind of reminds me of Overwatch's story, actually, in a lot of ways. Like especially that the one character, what was his name? The armed, like the guy who's like fully converted that was gonna get assassinated, but then it turned out he was the one who like organized it all.
Oh yeah, you're talking about like the
The
guy
guy,
with the golden
yeah,
head.
the guy who's the hero guy. Like
Yeah.
he kind of like his whole
He
story.
kind of like I mean maybe it's because of his voice in the English dub, but he kind of like reminded me of All Might from Be My Hero.
I don't know.
I
I
think they
didn't
have
watch
this.
the
I think that
English dub, so.
I think in English dub they have the same voice actor because he sounds exactly like All Might.
That's kind of hilarious.
Oh man, but I was like thinking, and the thing is, he talks about himself like he's a real hero and stuff. And you start to think, man, this guy must be like a really. They had me on like I can't believe I got suckered by that, but I legitimately thought that he was like one of the good guys and stuff.
Well, here's the
And
thing. I from the beginning I felt like there was going to be something off with him. I don't know. And another thing is, what about the fights in general? I feel like every fight scene kind of sucked, and they were all anticlimactic.
I kind of agree with you on that. Like there was like only like one fight scene, and it wasn't even really a fight scene that I thought was epic, and that was like the one. Remember where Jizo was in that alley getting confronted by that one dude, and he had like the box of Jizu's cigarettes and stuff, and like he thought he had like just like like he got all of his
Yeah.
like lackeys to like beat Jizo
Well,
up, and then he
that's the
thought he had
moment
him.
where he foreshadows like his true form, but he doesn't go to the true form. And then later in the series, we got his true form, but it was like his rage
That
mode
was pretty
form.
That was kind of anticlimactic.
Yeah, and they didn't
right
even
there.
they never even used it yet. Like the whole part, I'm sure maybe they will in part 2, but in part 1 so far, they haven't used his like actual gun, that the actual trigger that comes out of his back, right?
Oh no, they haven't used the one that come out of his back. They only used it for that other gun slave.
Well, did she use that, or did she use his head?
Yeah, she used that when she killed the golden
I thought
head.
she used his head gun to do that.
No, I'm pretty sure like she pulled a no. Wait, did she?
When? Because
I don't even remember.
I think she used his head. Wouldn't that? I feel like that gun.
I do remember at one point she did pull a trigger out of his bag. I think it was when she was fighting Jizo in his office and stuff though.
No, yeah, they confronted him there. She was going to do it, but he knocked him out before he could pull the trigger. I feel like that should be way more powerful. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, overall though, I was like when I didn't think that because they used the gun head like pretty early on in the show, and it was like episode 2 or 3, and I was like I was expecting more of a build up to it, and there really wasn't one. I mean, I'm dumping on the show. I'm gonna try to say some good things about the show. Like I said, I like the animation.
I like the animation for the most part.
I liked a lot of the character designs, and I think it has an interesting world, and it has the potential to be a really interesting. I mean, to have some really interesting stories told in that world. But you have to give characters motivations. They don't even have to be realistic motivations.
Yeah. Well,
they just have to be
I'm a big
present.
character guy in like just anime and TV shows in general. I like to see like a character have a story arc and like they have progression, and we really didn't get any of that this entire season.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing is, it like a character with no motivation can work in shows that like are designed around it. But this was like, it seemed more like a character-driven drama that was written around characters that have no drama.
But my thing is, I think the biggest problem I have with the show is just the way the story is told. That it's like you were talking about at the beginning, the way the episodes are formatted. You'll have kind of this overarching plot line with, the bad guys are looking for harmony and like they're trying to protect the kid or whatever. But then you have these like filler. They feel like literally filler episodes where he gets another job and then he just like how can he just come back to his base and pursue his regular career over and over and over, you know? It's just kind of weird. And then he does
Yeah.
these like little jobs. Especially glaring on the last episode where it's just this filler arc with this ghost bullshit. But I mean, I guess he gets that piece at the end, which might be like the secret to defeating them or whatever. But
You know what? I would like to think that you're right about that. That thing is gonna come in like to play a big play later on, but it seems like they're just throwing ideas out there left and right that really don't like have any lasting impact. So who knows? Like I felt like, I mean, honestly, overall, I mean, I haven't made this obvious by now. I went into the show wanting to really like find this like hidden gem, and I was just really just disappointed by pretty much everything in the show. There was like certain characters I thought were kind of interesting, even though like they weren't really fleshed out. I thought, for instance, Jizo, he was a pretty interesting character at the start. It's just like they didn't really build on anything outside of the first few episodes with him.
well, maybe it's just
Mary,
because I haven't watched a show like this, and I've been watching a lot of shonen like recently. Like, no character's like really overpowered, which is, I guess, is a good thing. But like, just seeing the main characters constantly lose every episode, it's kind of gets old. Like, that's the thing. I feel like there was not a significant battle where anyone really won. You know what I mean?
yeah, I kind of feel the same way. But you know, like outside of that though, like there were like like a lot of the side character. Well, like I say a lot. There aren't a lot of side characters, but I thought at the very least Mary was an interesting character. I thought like yeah, I would like to see more with Mary's backstory, and like like at least I would have liked to see them at least
So,
hint that they were on the right track
well,
of finding her brother by
well,
the end of it.
here's the
At least.
thing. So, what did you get? Because I put together that his original like hand guy was her brother. Did you put that
Uh,
together?
um, no. How did you come to that?
Because like one of the final episodes, his silhouette looks like when he has him in the back of his car or whatever. It looks like the same guy, and then also the guy he had the final job with mentioned her brother's name, and he says he's looking for you or something like that. Or you?
Oh yeah, her
And
brother's name does start with a V, right?
yeah,
'Cause
Victor.
there was a V on
That,
yeah.
and that's the
Oh
thing.
yeah,
So
I guess that
so
does make sense.
so his original handler, I think, is the engineer because it makes sense. I'm pretty sure that it was her brother. And that's probably why he takes care of her or is there in the first place, right? But the thing is, they also set up like he doesn't have a memory. But like, does he have no memory to what point? Like, does he have some memory of the war? Does he have no memory like after before? I mean, I guess there's no memory before the war, but when he got converted. But does he have memories that start from the beginning? Like, how far back does his memories go? They don't really fully
Yeah.
establish that either, because he seems to remember a lot of stuff from the war period.
I never really got that he remembered much of anything from the war because like
Well, no,
it
because
doesn't
remember,
really
he's
seem
like, those are my like he remembered that the one guys were his commanders, and
oh yeah, I remember him talking about how he could recognize his superiors and
yeah,
stuff.
so he knew
But
who they were. So he obviously, and he remembers his handler guy or the hands guy, and which I think is her brother because like it basically foreshadowed it in the silhouette at the end. And I don't know if he's going to be evil or what's going to have happened to him, but I think he is a major
I think
element to
he's
the
like
story.
some major higher up in the Baru. They how do you pronounce that corporation, Baru?
I can't. Well, you watch the English dub. You might know. I was watching it in Japanese, so I mean,
Like it made I mean like I don't know. I'm not even gonna try. Uh, let's see. I thought that like yeah, I would have liked to see more with her brother. I would have liked to see like more designs for the overextended too. Like
yeah.
the overextended seems to be what the main focus of the show.
But there's not that many overextended,
Yeah.
supposedly, though. That's the thing. And
And like a lot of the people, like I mean, it seemed like because some of the people in the show that they just called the regular extended, like I couldn't tell how what makes you overextended. Like apparently the guy with like that guy that was that was working for that terrorist group, he wasn't overextended, right? He was just a regular extended.
yeah, but he was.
But most of his body was robotic. So how much of your body has to get converted before you become overextended? Or is it just certain types of modifications that make you overextended?
I think it's like if it's like a maybe it's something to do with your actual brain, like is converted into the subbrain or something. But because I don't know, because the whole subbrain thing confused me as well.
Yeah, the
Also,
subbrain thing confused me too. What
can,
is the subbrain?
can
Is it
can
like a second brain you get, or is it like a?
well, apparently it's like a second brain that controls the cybernetics in the body. So like that's kind of a weak point. But the overextendeds usually have it in a hidden spot, or expect the older ones, I guess, not even necessarily newer ones. But the thing is, they don't really set up. Are there newer overextendeds, or are the overextendeds just a legacy older program? Because they kind of set it up where all the overextendeds existed in the past, and no one does that anymore. You know. And
Yeah, I mean,
okay, but can we talk about? I want to talk about this. The cigarettes. I thought the cigarettes were the dumbest shit ever. I thought.
Yes, I'm glad you agree with me on that. Oh my god, like really?
I mean,
it's medication.
I
medication.
I get it looks cool having the gun smoke a cigarette, but
I mean, I like it. It's like that pun, like the smoking gun. It's literally a smoking gun. but like yeah, like the whole cigarette thing, having like he needs it in order to keep control and stuff. I'm like, in this futuristic society where they can augment so much of your body,
yeah,
the only way they can think to medicate these overextended people is with some overpowered cigarettes.
yeah.
I'm like, I have a hard time believing that.
It's just
like,
it's a weird concept, but I guess maybe that's just kind of a reference to how society controls people with medication and addiction and cigarettes. Or,
I mean,
well,
yes.
here's another thing. Okay, so you know Pepper, right? She's like the one hands that controls the other gun slave.
Oh, the hot chick.
Yeah, so she controls the other gun slave unit 7, right? If you noticed, we didn't really get much of their backstory either, especially the 7 backstory, because he apparently sounds like a little kid, right?
Yeah,
At
he
least,
sounds like Alphonse. Well, in the English dub anyway, he sounds like Alphonse.
yeah, because
from,
in the Japanese, he sounded like a young kid, and his name is 7. So I don't know if he was maybe 7 years old when he got converted or whatever.
I'm thinking maybe he's number 7 out of a group, out of a series of gunslaves.
Well, my thing is, if Juzo doesn't have memories, where did he get his name?
That is a good question.
Like, I don't know.
Maybe he was like a number 2, like you know.
Well, I don't know if that name is a reference to something in Japanese that we don't get.
Like, and when did he get overextended? Because at some point I'm assuming he was born human, right? So
yeah, and there's he was definitely born human, and then there was the gunslave program where I guess that's where they lost all their memories being before that. So like they were born as gunslaves. And that's kind of the whole story from that. But what I was getting at with the whole 7 plot line, 7 apparently uses lollipops instead of cigarettes, if you noticed.
Oh, so like they had to go. I mean, if you're gonna come up with a dumb idea, you might as well follow it up with an even dumber one.
Well, because like if you notice in the anime intro, like he always has a lollipop, and then she mentions about giving him a lollipop, and he doesn't need to smoke. So I assume he has the same problems that Juzo has, but I think they have like the medication in the lollipop or something like that for him. I guess that's what I'm thinking. I don't really know though.
Well, what I'm thinking is, well, why couldn't they just give them a pill or something like, or
yeah,
or like literally anything.
And
also another thing that's
I was gonna say. He also loses an arm at the end of the series, and they don't even acknowledge it. I didn't even realize he lost his arm until he was getting up. No one had even acknowledged that happened, really.
Well, they did stick with keeping him, because I think he loses his arm like episode 10 or whatever, and he never gets that arm back.
But Mary's a master engineer. You're telling me they can't find an arm for him?
That doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
I'm sure he's gonna get an arm back soon. It just was weird that he didn't have an arm.
A super overpowered arm eventually, like, or maybe he'll get like an arm that can stretch around to the back of his head so he can pull his own damn trigger.
Well, okay, so remember at the final episode the floating hands or whatever? Is he gonna keep that floating hand? Because at the end,
that would be awesome if he could like gain control of that floating hand.
Do we know where the floating hand came from? Because they left that whole story on a cliffhanger too.
So they hinted that it might have been that the hand itself is an extended. So that hand is actually a person.
But why did it want to protect the chick? And then
remember like somebody, I forgot who said it in the last episode, that he like I think Jizo said that like her dad hired the hand to protect her.
Well, they said they thought that's what happened, but they didn't know that if that was what happened. That's because that was the
Yeah, I
whole
mean,
thing. They're like,
honestly, I don't even think that's gonna even be relevant because it doesn't seem like that girl getting haunted by the ghost or whatever. It doesn't seem like she's gonna be coming back as a recurring character.
no.
It seemed like a one-off thing that just
But I
kind of.
think that drive is super important for the part two. I mean, and that's the thing because a
That's,
part
that's
of
if that's
me.
if that hand is still around in part two.
That's the thing. There's so many plot lines like that. There's so many leftover things that.
I mean, they've thrown around like tons of plot lines. Like, what happened to the two girls that Tetsuro was trying to save in at the beginning of the series? Like the girl that turns into the giant spider thing, and the other girl that was with her. What happened to those two?
Wait, what two?
You know those two that were in like that underground area. They were like they were
Oh yeah,
trying to
they
capture.
said they said they both survived. That's the thing I didn't understand too. I was confused because remember, he has like a flashback. He's like, I couldn't save anybody, and he's like, he thought about those kids, but they didn't even die, right? The only character that died in the entire series so far was that one kid at the end.
Um, what kid?
The one dude who does the terrorist shit, and then like he takes him to his sisters, and then he dropped dead, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
He's the only guy that dies the entire series.
Oh yeah, actually the golden head dude, he died.
Oh yeah, I guess he does die. He gets killed.
Yeah, but like in both cases, like those characters, those their deaths. I'm not saying that their deaths were. Actually, I am saying both their deaths were totally meaningless because these characters were introduced just for one specific plot line, not even a story arc, just one measly plot line, and then they are killed off at the end of that plot line. Like if you're going to introduce a character, build them up, and kill them in the same episode, it's not going to have an impact of like a character that you've developed over the course of like a few episodes and like established a relationship with some of the main characters and stuff, and then kill them off. Like
Yeah.
so, like it doesn't seem like they were going for much of a dramatic impact with like depths in this show. Um, Another thing I really do want to like ask, because maybe where is Jizo's eyes at? You notice they hinted that early on that like he puts the blindfold over where like the revolver thing is,
Yeah.
and Mary's like, your eyes aren't even there. What's the point of you wearing the blindfold? And I'm thinking, where the fuck are his eyes? So
I have no idea. I think maybe they're in his mouth or something, but then his mouth's not open.
I mean, like, if his eyes are in his mouth, that means like he's constantly breathing smoke over his
Well,
eyes when he's smoking those cigarettes. And
my
stuff.
question is, so are we led to believe the revolver is entirely his head, or does he have a regular brain in there, or any part of his head in there, or is it just
I'm
like I don't fully understand that.
I don't either. I mean, like, I'm assuming the way it is, like, his head would have to be. I mean, his brain would have to be in his neck or something.
Yeah.
This. I mean, because his brain can't be in the revolver part because that's all metal, and it doesn't seem to have any organic connection to the rest of his body, as far as I can tell. Because otherwise he would be able to like shoot his own gun rather than having to depend on somebody else to yank the back of his head to pull the trigger, which is yeah. So I guess the next thing I wanted to get to, because this is obviously something that's near and dear to my heart in every anime, is and I noticed you put it down as a category, and I thank you for that. Best waifu.
Okay, let's get into the best waifu then. So,
All right.
so
I've already said Olivier, and I will
Olivier.
die on that hill.
Well, let's see who.
Like-
Well, we have Mary, Olivier, Karen, Christina, Scarlet, and Pepper. Obviously, Christina is your favorite.
Or, no, why is Christina even a woman? Isn't that a man
Uh,
dressed as a woman?
I don't know what the fuck that was.
Were you joking with this?
Of course I was joking. Like,
Like,
well, some people might
well,
be into the
well,
trannies. I don't know. Maybe that is
it's
someone's
not even
wife.
like that's not even a tranny. It's really what
I don't
it's just a
know.
cross-dressing man.
No,
Um,
I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be a girl. I don't know. I
well,
don't know.
Christina is this world's equivalent of RuPaul.
Okay. All right.
Right.
Well, okay. So besides obviously that, whatever.
So I mean, I'm just gonna, obviously Olivier, she's just leagues ahead of every other woman in the show.
Well,
But
I hate to break it to you. I really do think Mary is the best character, best waifu. I have to go with Mary.
no,
Yeah.
I mean, really?
Well, okay.
Really, what?
Listen, so neither of those characters we got any backstory. We got a little bit more backstory of them in the last few episodes. Like both of those characters, we got a tiny dive into their
like
backstory.
neither of them have much backstory, but Olivier has a lot more front story, if you know what I mean.
But I mean, Mary did say that she practically has C-sized tits, okay? And that's pretty acceptable, okay?
Well, Olivier's is double D's pushing into the F's. Easily.
But I think Mary as an overall character is just more interesting and fun.
I don't know. Olivier's character is I found much more interesting. Like
she seems like a hard ass. She doesn't seem like she'd be fun at all to hang out with. She's pretty annoying.
Like, it was
she literally
that can of that really disgusting smelling stuff, and like remember I like the part
what the
where
fuck
it's
was that smelly shit too? Like I don't understand that at the end. Like okay, her dad gave that to her. Is the tuna smell so badly it just poisons? And weren't those her own men at the end?
Like, she smells that stuff to calm down.
That's why I don't
But,
understand.
like, other people, Jizo, I didn't even see a nose on Jizo, yet he couldn't even stand being around smelling that stuff.
I just didn't get that part at all. I really didn't. It was super duper confusing.
Yeah.
What about Karen and Pepper? Did you?
Karen was like, you know what? I'm gonna say Karen.
Karen was the first like the nun chick.
I really wish she had more appearances because I felt like she was gonna be a really interesting character.
Do you think she's gonna come back? I don't know why because they mention her very briefly. Pepper mentions that it's her sister at the end.
I kind of knew it was her sister.
I mean, they look identical.
When I saw Pepper, I thought it was Karen because you hadn't seen Karen for several episodes at that point, and then you see Pepper show up, and it's not like you remember these characters' names because they mention the characters' names like once.
Are they supposed to be like twins?
I think Karen's older.
You think?
I mean,
do you feel like they have some significance? Like they're like related to somebody, or like where do you think they came from? Were they like experiments too, or because they don't have that many modifications?
I think the government was experimenting on augmented boobs.
Yeah.
And they succeeded.
And the only other character I put on the list here is Scarlet. Did you like her at all?
That's she's like the assistant or daughter of that guy in the
daughter of the barber
whatever.
shop guy.
I mean, we don't even get to see much of her. You see her in that one scene when they get
captured.
She's
just the tropey.
The
she's the tropey character. She just is in love with him for some reason. And
I mean, like, the thing is, like, they introduced these. I mean, it's going back to my main problem with shows that they introduce like stuff. Like they'll introduce new characters and then forget that those characters existed. Like by the next scene. So it's like we didn't really get to see much of her other than her whining in the barbershop place, and then like you see her in the like the closing credits and stuff. You know, her in her in her like swimming suit and stuff. That's pretty much it.
Well, I mean, what does it take for a character to become a waifu, though? You know, that's the question that we're really asking in this category. Like, what does it take?
I think you know my answer to that already, Josh.
I think Scarlet has bigger tits.
No, she does. Are you kidding?
I don't know, man.
Olivier, she's I mean, I would say this much. Olivier is the only thing about the show I cannot find anything wrong with.
I really didn't like her as a character. I didn't like her backstory. I didn't like what she was about. She seemed so conflicted. I still didn't understand her confliction because she's like, her dad wanted her to follow the rules and be by the book, so then she decides to follow what her dad wants, but at the end she decides to betray what he wants, but then Juzo's like, no, that's not actually what you want to follow the rules, so then she chooses to follow the rules again, and then she just
And
opened
it
up some
turned out to
tuna.
be but don't you like the overall the the moral of the story that they introduced at the end of that? It's like she went and followed the rules at the end, captured him, got evidence. I mean, captured the gold head dude, got evidence against him, stuff.
Yeah, and then he gets him killed.
And then they're like, oh, then the dude was like, do you know who made me a hero in the first place? It's the same government that you work for. And then like the government killed him to quiet him down, basically saying that following the rules will get you nowhere. So
Well,
it
that's
was
why
overall
I didn't
meaningless.
understand her story arc. I really, because like her dad died because he followed the rules, so it made no sense for her to like want to follow in his, like, wasn't that his mistake in the first place? Like, why would she want to follow his example? I didn't really make sense, and I don't see how she became the director, being the way she is. She doesn't seem very good at managing anything, and they so easily overthrew her. Maybe it was just because she.
Well, you remember when when they first introduced her, she's like saying to Jizo that yeah, the people below me don't listen to me, and the people above me just like ignore everything that I suggest.
That's what I don't understand. How does she this?
She basically admits that she's a useless puppet.
She's a shitty director. That's what I'm saying. She's she's like the worst director of anything.
No, it's not that she's a bad director. It's that like that system is so corrupt that her position is meaningless.
But she has so many people underneath her. But she still chooses.
Underneath her, the people underneath her still like report to people higher than her. So
it doesn't.
Her position
But
is entirely
okay,
meaningless.
it doesn't make sense that she's the director, but she decides to bring in a freelancer on a mission just because she has like a deal with him or whatever.
The reason she brought him in is because she wanted that guy caught alive, and she knew that the higher ups wanted him dead. So,
but I'm saying that went against. It just really didn't make sense.
I mean, like that part made sense to me in the fact that I mean, we both worked at Walmart. We know how corruption works. So, like, think about this. Like, do you remember times where you would have like maybe like a manager or whatever, not even like a senior manager, but maybe a department manager that just kissed up to like the co-managers or the store managers so much that listening to code 10 over that department.
I love how you're comparing a fictional anime government structure to Walmart.
I mean, it's basically the same thing. It's a corrupt like national conglomerate. And in many ways, I think this anime, like the Baruin Corporation, seems to draw many parallels from Walmart.
So, but what character do you think has like the most potential of like the waifus then, like to do more?
This is gonna seem surprising, but I'm going to have to say both Karen and Pepper, simply because right now, like we already kind of have an idea of like what would be the main driving motivations for characters like Mary or Olivier, but Karen and Pepper seem to be like they're still a mystery, and that mystery makes them more interesting because it leaves something to build on with them, like what caused them to go down the path that they're on, and like
well, I assume that they were just kind of born into it, right?
I mean, like we don't know that though. Like we know nothing about them. I mean, and these characters, if they choose to, if the series goes on and they choose to like really say, hey, these characters are more than just two crazy chicks who just want to kill people because a corporation tells them to, and they have a realistic motivation and a driving force behind what they're doing, and goals outside of just being a puppet for a corporation. I think that they could be more interesting.
Well, here's my theory. I think that they could be the CEO's daughters, or they could be one of the other executives' daughters.
Well, if they were the CEO's daughters, they'd be Tetsuro's sisters.
That's what I think. I really think that. I don't know. I feel like that could be what it is, because they already set up that he doesn't care about his kids, so it makes sense that these elite like warriors are his kids. I don't know. Or maybe one of the other executives. we didn't really get to see what any of the executives look like, so we
I
got
mean,
like
yeah, like
silhouettes
we
of
just,
them.
I don't even know what's going on with that. I will tell you what, like off of, I can tell you what's the least interesting waifu.
Who?
You already know. Come
Uh,
on.
who?
Look at your list, Josh.
Okay.
Who do you think I don't want to know any more about at
Christina.
all? Yes.
I mean, okay. Well, and I didn't even put
Yeah.
the one chicks on here just because they're like
Oh,
the little
those.
kids, but they're like kids
Yeah.
though. So I mean,
Are they kids? Like
I don't
they
know,
look older than Tetsuro.
bro. That's how anime is though. I just didn't want to put them
I
on the
mean,
list. They were like in like at least all of these other characters made at least an appearance in 2 episodes.
uh, the thing is though,
Even, well,
like
Karen was I think only in 2 episodes. Yeah,
I think Karen was only in one episode.
was she? I don't even know. She was in
I
the
mean, like she appeared in an episode where she like takes Tetsuro's body and then Jizo like saves him from that train that they're on like 5 seconds later, and that's the last time you ever see her.
yeah, that's true. But
So
yeah,
but
well,
I think that the fact that she was mentioned in more than one episode kind of makes her more important. I mean, because the thing is, if like for instance, if Pepper is like if she has a gun slave that she controls, does Karen also have a gun slave or
I
that's
don't think so. And like, okay, so they also set up the idea that maybe Mary or Tetsuro would become the hands for Juzo, right?
yeah. I mean, like
I
I
guess.
think they were really kind of like emphasizing that Tetsuro was going to take
What?
over because you remember when
But you say
Tetsuro was
that, but I feel like Mary is just as much as part of the team as Tetsuro
yeah.
is. They're
Yeah,
kind of
but I
all
think
of the team
Tetsuro,
now.
like Mary's like her, she has a role already. She's the engineer. She's the person that has to
But
fix
I
Tetsuro and
think in the
Jizo and
original war though, the engineer was also the hands. I think that's how it worked. I think the engineer worked with the gunslave.
but you remember like when Jizo first saved Tetsuro and brought him back to his office, Mary's like did you find a new partner already or something like that?
Yeah, I
You
know
remember
they're
when she said that?
foreshadowing him to become the partner, but he already has the harmony power. It just seems like it would be redundant for him to have the power of harmony, but then rely on the gunslave.
Well, the thing is that harmony power, as cool as it is, it usually ends up becoming pretty worthless for him
Well,
because
I'm saying like that's his
he
whole point of his
accomplishes
character,
so.
though. Like that should be what he focuses on. So like for him to be the hands and the harmony user is kind of stupid. So I'm thinking
Yeah,
Mary would become because the whole point of the person who uses the gunslave is someone he trusts, and I think he's trusting both of them, so they both might be
yeah.
able to use his gun at some point.
Well.
I
See,
don't
here's
know.
the thing though. Tetsuro, I don't know. It's like Tetsuro is such a useless character that you have to give him something. You have to give him something.
I mean,
Well, I remember in the last
his
episode. Oh, actually, it was like the last
his
episode Tetsuro
most
appears in.
notable moment is getting a pack of cigarettes to.
Yes, that's the most useful thing he did in all 12 episodes. Is
And
give Jizo his cigarettes.
the thing is, I mean,
And
he
he didn't even like he didn't
he
even like save Jizo in that part.
yeah
It was Olivier who like
he
smoked
ne-
the cigarette and breathed the smoke into his mouth.
yeah, and he needed her to drive him there and show him where he was. Like he didn't really do anything.
Yeah, I mean, like I did like the last episode that Tetro appears in before the ghost episode comes up. The last actually I think it was the ghost episode at the beginning of that when like Jizo's having that conversation with Tetro. Tetro said like just starts crying. He's like, I'm so useless and was I ever really used to anybody? And I was thinking, no, you weren't. So
Well, okay, that's the difference though, because if this was a shonen, he would be the main character, but it's not.
Tetro?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, if Tetro was the main character, I promise you, nobody would have heard of this show.
Well, I'm just saying, like, if this was just like a regular shonen, then he would be the main character, and he would like master his ability and become like awesome. But since it's not
No, no.
that,
See, the thing is, like, the thing say that, but even if they had made Tetsuo overpowered character, the thing about shonens, and I do generally hate most main characters in shonen, but everything about the main shonen is like each of the main characters have like a driving motivation.
yeah,
They have something they want to achieve for them. Naruto wants to become Hokage. Midoriya wants to be the number one hero. and like Goku just wants to be the worst father in the universe. But Tetsuo, he has no motivation whatsoever. He has nothing that he's trying to accomplish for himself. He just wants to help out other people because it's the right thing to do, and that's not a motivation that
I
people can
mean,
get behind.
he wants to save people. I mean, that's kind of
Well,
like meteor.
no, see the thing is though, it's like it's a motivation that's so bland and so generic that nobody cares about it. Like if you give a character a motivation that like is like something that they want for
Well,
themselves
they
rather than
kind
something
of
they want for other
foreshadowed
people.
that he wanted to save the other kids in the institute or whatever. But I feel like they should have emphasized that more. They should have made him like
I mean,
have
even
that
that I
more of
don't
his
think would have been
drive.
that interesting. I think a better motivation for him would have been like, going to kill his father or taking down a Baruran Corporation or something like that. That's a motivation that has like a real, like a logical instinct. You know what he has to do to accomplish that goal. But I just want to save everybody. Like, when does that goal ever ending? That's like that's the easiest comparison to that is like the war on terror. When are you ever gonna win that? Come on, like, but like if you would give a character like a motivation that they want for themselves that has a logical instinct, something that they can eventually accomplish through their own actions. Like I said, with Naruto becoming Hokage, when he becomes Hokage, he accomplished that goal. It ended his arc. When Midoriya becomes the #1 hero, that will end his arc, and that's a logical conclusion that gives him something to work towards. If Naruto made his motivation to be like, I want to be the best ninja ever, like there's always gonna be a better ninja, but there's only gonna be one Hokage. Uh,
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not even Tetsuro's lack of focus. I mean, it's all the characters. Like, well, I mean, Mary. That's why I like Mary. That's why I think she's my waifu because at least she has a goal to find her brother. She's the only character in the show that has a tangible goal.
I
And
think Olivier has a tangible goal too.
what? What is her fucking goal?
I don't know.
I don't think she knows. That's the thing. Like
well,
she.
I mean, actually, she does have a.
Does she want to follow her father's footsteps? Does she want to do her own thing?
No,
Does she
remember
want to be
in
with
the backstory with
Juzo?
her. You remember with the backstory with her and her father? She was saying that she wanted to make it up to a high enough position within
She's the fucking director. She's the fucking director. She got there.
She got there, so she's accomplished it. But I think she wants to get high enough to the point where she can end the corruption.
Do you think end of the series she's gonna be like the president of the government or something?
Hopefully.
Was that what you think? I really couldn't say what it would be.
Well, well, since what? There's one more thing I did want to like ask you about because it was something that's kind of been bothering me too. Bothered me quite a bit is like Jizo. Doesn't it seem like a lot of the women in the show are like romantically attracted to him?
Well, there's a little bit of a harem.
I mean, this is some bizarre shit right here. So
I mean, he's pretty cool, mysterious.
No, dude, for instance, remember how he got all he got all hot,
before
hot and heavy when he found out that Olivier basically gave him that kiss
and there's been moments with Scarlet but then
the part with Pepper.
That's what I was gonna get to before we get off the waifu, the Pepper part with him.
Like Pepper, she just full on implied that she wants to get it on with this gunhead.
Well,
she wants both guns to shoot off for her.
She wants to own him or whatever.
Look, I think she wanted to do some really dirty stuff. Like you remember Mary when Pepper was just licking all over him? She said, you're mine now. And
so,
stuff. And,
but the thing is,
Mary was
with Pepper though, we're led to believe that Pepper
it's crazy. Well, absolutely.
Well, she operated on her own accord though at the end there. Like she's the one who seeked him out. She wasn't underneath their orders, and the only reason she backed off is because the kid was there. That's the only reason she left. So, but her goal, she wants 2 gunslave units. Could she even use 2 at once? I just don't understand. If you already have a gunslave, why would you need 2 of them?
honestly, I
I
think she's
don't.
trying to have. I think she's trying to have Jizo's little gun baby. That's what I think. So
Can Gunslaves even have kids?
I don't know. That's the thing that's bothering me. I don't know,
I
and
don't
I don't
know
even
how
know if
much
he
of how much of him
how much
is
of his
human.
body has
Yeah.
been like extended. Like, does he even have the human parts down there?
And he said he doesn't even feel pain.
Yeah, I mean, everything about that I was like, how would it work? It's like, you think about it like the Little Mermaid. How do they do it? Like,
I mean, I don't know if that's the most apt comparison, but that's
it
definitely a
is because
comparison.
it gives you those same thoughts. I remember when I was a kid, the first time watching Little Mermaid, I was thinking the same thing. Like, I mean, yeah, but yeah, that part just really bothered me to no end, and it's gonna bother me probably like for a while. I mean, honestly, maybe that part alone would be enough to get me to read ahead on a wiki or something. But
Well,
uh,
let's just get into the last category, just the best moments and aspects. So, I mean, what overall was your favorite like moment you think you saw on the entire show? Like, what was the moment you're like, oh, this might be good? Did you have a moment
my
like that?
let's see. I guess my favorite moment would have probably been like I said, that first like that fight scene early on, where it wasn't even really a fight scene, but when like Jizo starts to hint that he's a real badass that's kind of holding back, when he was fighting that dude in the alley that had,
The Cunningham guy, right?
yeah, like when he was fighting that dude in the alley, and he started to release his
That was probably my
ultimate
favorite part
form and stuff.
too. But
And it, like nothing came of that, but it was like the only time that
well, they were
it like built up
foreshadowing
this.
the part he did later when he
I
actually
mean, like, yeah,
unleashed
they
it.
they foreshadowed it, and they were building up to it, and then when it finally happened, you're like, it
Well,
was.
I just wanted to see them actually pull the back trigger and it be like some super ultimate attack. I don't know if they're saving that for the next part or I just feel like
Uh,
since this was just the introductory part, if they wanted to keep people watching, they shouldn't have ended where they did and just kind of overall. But I mean, as far as my favorite moment, that was probably my favorite moment and then just overall, I enjoyed the animation. I mean, Madhouse who does the production is probably one of my favorite anime production like studios just cuz they always
yeah, I
make
mean,
high quality stuff.
yeah, I really do like Madhouse, and like I think as far as like Madhouse did their job, like I like
That
all
that
the stuff I
that's why
said,
I
all the
kind
bad
of
stuff I said about
wanted
it. I
to.
love the art style, I love the animation, I love the aesthetics, everything about the show that from like an artistic point of view was great. It just fell apart for me with like everything else.
Well, that's why
But
like a part of me wants to kind of know what happens and I don't know how true this anime has been to the manga. Maybe the manga is more interesting. I don't really know. I feel like it's
yeah,
Madhouse is usually pretty good at like doing a direct recreation of the manga. Pretty much all of their stuff that I've seen, it's pretty much one to one to the manga. So
yeah.
I
I mean,
assume that's what
honestly,
we're looking at
I
here.
like, yeah. So like, honestly, I feel like for what Madhouse did, like they did a great job. I think if you were going into the show like just looking for, I think overall this show, if you were just going to the show looking for like some action show that may have had like like some like just enough plot there to give you something to nibble on between the action scenes and stuff, this might be a good holdover.
I just don't think it has
Um,
as much depth as some people have. Like
yeah,
the
like like I said, Mother when
illusions and all of that.
yeah,
Like I don't really feel like any of that's.
like I would because like the thing is I watched Mother's Basement's video on it, and like he was praising this anime, talking about how he was talking about it like it was a masterpiece or something. I was like,
Hmm.
well, this dude like like other stuff that he's recommended in the past I have enjoyed. So I was thinking, yeah, it's gonna be pretty good.
Did you
But
enjoy
like
the
what
soundtrack and the music?
I don't even remember the soundtrack. So,
I mean, I liked kind of. There's a lot of
I
aspects of
like
it.
the closing theme. I do like the closing theme song, but
Yeah.
overall, I like the music during the show and stuff. It didn't really stick out for me that much. Like there was nothing that really was memorable for me. Like and the thing is, I do like a lot of anime, like a lot of anime soundtracks, and when I do like them, I'll go back and listen to the soundtracks for animes I like. Like that One Punch Man theme.
Oh yeah.
You won't forget that theme even
Well,
if you've only like
even
watched one
it's not
episode.
One Punch Man. It's not even just the main theme. Like even the music and like
Yeah,
I feel
even
like
the music during like a lot of the other fights and stuff, it's like it's stuff that it just sticks with you. And
well
the
that
same thing with My Hero, like that fight thing, you say run or whatever.
yeah.
Uh,
Well, that's the
that theme sticks with you.
there was no themes in this that really did that for me.
Yeah,
There's no
and then
music that makes me feel emotion. Like some of those anime themes, they like those themes make you feel certain. Like when you hear the theme, you are in a certain emotion. So a
yeah,
lot of
and those themes
animes
like
they have
they played
those.
them at the right times too. So like
Yeah,
when you were watching them in context, especially like you remember like the last episode of last episode of season one where like Saitama's fighting Boros and stuff,
yeah,
and it starts playing the One Punch theme song.
yeah.
That would that fight was already epic enough,
And
but
then
then when you mix it with
even
that
right
theme,
after that fight too, like just like when he defeats him, the little the sad kind of like soundtrack that plays
yeah,
after, it's like just perfect. And I think all the best anime soundtracks they have that like mix
they have,
of like really powerful music, like music that gets you hyped, music that makes you feel like something's more awesome or epic than it
yeah,
actually is.
I mean, like, and if even if you're that more somber music that goes with the tone of your anime. Like I think a good mix for like a good example comparing to something like this would be Cowboy Bebop.
Yeah,
Cowboy Bebop, like like it has like a lot of those like more somber like the jazz like type. I mean, it has a lot of like jazz music in general, but like that jazz like with the somber like tone and stuff to the
Cowboy
music
Bebop's
goes
music's
really well.
amazing though.
Yes, Cowboy Bebop's entire soundtrack is amazing, and the thing is, it was amazing because it chose the right music to go with the feeling the show was trying to invoke. I didn't feel like No Gun's life had that. I didn't really think they had like a unifying vision on what tone they were trying to achieve with the music and stuff. So they really relied heavily. I mean, I guess they weren't trying to achieve much of anything through the mood of the scenes alone. They depended on like, I mean, I guess I'll wait until we go into final thoughts before I start going into this. But
Yeah.
like the unifying, like it didn't seem like the music it was like a main thought in building the overall show. It seemed really like they were focusing more on the animation
And that's kind of
and the
what
art and the
that's what
storytelling.
Madhouse usually does. But Madhouse did do One Punch Man season 1 as well. So
Yeah, and that was a
um,
masterpiece. That was a masterpiece. Season 2 was garbage, but like,
the
season 1
animation is like definitely not a question. I just feel like for the vibe of it, I mean, there's some decent. Even the opening theme song, I feel like it sets the wrong mood for the show.
yeah.
It really didn't put me in the mood to watch this show. Like, and I almost listened to the theme every time I watched an episode because I just had it like on playback watching it on Hulu. So I listened to the opening and ending theme almost every time, and the ending thing was decent. But I mean, neither of them really felt the vibe, and I feel like that's kind of important for like if you're just starting the show to kind of get you in the
Yeah.
mindset of it. Um,
Yeah,
but overall,
overall though,
animation's probably my favorite aspect of the show. Just the quality
yeah.
of
So
animation.
I mean you want to get to final thoughts?
Yeah, let's go ahead and just you can go ahead and go first with what your
All right.
final thoughts are.
Well, my final thoughts, I mean, if I haven't made it clear throughout this entire podcast, is like I like the animation, I like the art style. I felt like it had a really interesting world, and it had characters that could have been interesting if they had have developed the characters or like given anything about any of these characters' backstories, given the characters any kind of meaningful motivations. Uh, but overall, it seemed like the storytelling was kind of like all over the place. They introduce plot lines and then forget about them 5 seconds later. They depend on they introduce a lot of the backstory and a lot of like concepts through huge exposition dumps that throw out like new terminology like it's no tomorrow. Like you don't know what half the stuff they're talking about is, and then they're explaining what it is in exposition dumps to other characters who already understand what they're talking about. So it feels like you're basically like reading like uh, a wiki on the show while you're watching it.
Yeah.
So overall, I had high hopes for it, and I was really let down.
I mean, so what would you say? Would you recommend this to
I
anyone?
w- I w- I would not recommend this. It was a hard watch, and I don't feel like I got anything out of the time I invested into
And you
watching it.
said you're not going to be picking it back up for the second part.
No, like there was like I like I said, I normally give an anime 3 episodes to catch my interest with their concept and to build up the like like build up the interest in the show. Like if you can't do that in 3 episodes, then usually I won't even give you a chance after that. But I gave this anime 12 episodes to give me something to want to look forward to, and by the end of the 12th episode, I just didn't care. And so I'm overall I was my like I mean, I'm not gonna say it's definitely far from the worst anime I've seen like even in the past month, but I would not recommend this simply because it's like an anime that focuses more on style than substance. It looks great. The animation is the highest quality animation I've seen in a long time, but it just falls flat in every other category, and overall like it's just not interesting to watch.
Yeah. And I honestly I feel kind of very similarly. I liked some aspects of it. I just feel like the pacing and the way the story was told wasn't done kind of in a good way or in an engaging way to really keep you engaged. By the fourth episode, I was completely bored, and every episode I was watching after that, I watched it over the course of the last week, and I watched it piecemeal. I could only stand a couple episodes at a time. It's really not a good sign, and especially maybe if the episode 12 had ended better, then I might have had more motivation to check out part 2. But at this point, I am interested in parts of the world, and maybe I'll read the manga sometime to kind of see where the story is. Maybe if I hear the manga ends or something like that, I might check it out one day. But and maybe years from now I'll check out the second part, but I really just don't care to pick it up as it comes out, especially if it is going to do like an original video like an ending or something like that, because I really just don't know the focus of where the show is going. And even though, like you said, it has a lot of good elements with just the style of it, the story just they really screwed it up, I think.
Yeah. I mean, and the thing is, the story. I mean, it's not that the story didn't have potential. It, like I said, it had infinite amounts of
It
potential, which
has
makes it even
potential.
more
They just didn't focus on the aspects I think
Yeah.
a lot of people
I
were
mean,
interested in.
I think that's what really disappointed me more than anything is that they had so much potential with this story. They could have done so much with it, and then like they just kind of like blew it. And so for me, like it was a boring show, but it was also really disappointing in that it's not like it had a bad concept. It had a great concept. It just didn't. It was so poorly executed that I don't even know why they bothered. But yeah, those are I guess
Well,
overall like.
what would you say though of there's so many like manga series out there. Do you really think this one should have even got an anime at this point from what we saw?
No.
Because there's a lot of these. That's why a part of me just does want to check out the manga. Because I feel like some stories like this are maybe better in manga form. Because these are more geared towards adult readers that are,
I
more
mean,
about the
yeah,
politics and stuff like that.
I think maybe it could have worked as an anime if they had just made it like a different style. If they wanted to make it, which it seemed like that what they were going with is more of an episodic style. Like if you're gonna go with an episodic style like of anime, you need to have like complete self-contained stories that can fit into one episode. So
Yeah, and that's why
something
I
like
feel
what
like the manga, like if it was like a story of the week type of thing, so like every
yeah
manga chapter is like, oh, looks Juzo got some new client this week. Let's see what adventures he'll go into,
yeah
and there's kind of that overarching story of like eventually like the plot advances, but that
yeah
in
and
anime form it just didn't work because the plot
Yeah,
doesn't
I mean
advance at
there
all.
are anime that manage to pull that off too. Like a good example would be like you've seen Case Closed.
Yes, I have actually. Yeah.
Like I think Case Closed does that really well because like they set up an like overarching plot in the first few episodes of like Conan becoming a little kid and stuff, and then like like him. And the main goal is for him to figure out who turned him into a kid and try to become an adult again. But then each episode after that is just like self-contained episodes about the mystery of the week or whatever. So it doesn't depend on large exposition dumps. It just depends on information relevant to that episode.
Yeah.
And
I mean, that
this show,
storytelling does work. I mean, obviously, Doctor Who, one of my favorite shows of all time, that's
yeah.
what they do, and it works well. It just doesn't work well in this story because,
Yeah, because they didn't have any focus on that. They were focusing on telling an overarching plot when they didn't have an overarching plot to tell a story about. So,
yeah. And
uh,
no characters really had goals that were something that they were working on progressing. Because it seemed like each time they were starting to progress on the main story goal, they would just go back to his base and then get a new client and then go on another mini adventure. And I guess I get that that's leading up to something probably with that flash drive or whatever at the end or the memory stick, but I just don't care enough to follow through now.
yeah,
So
and I think that that really that one saying pretty much sums up what I think both of us feel is that by the end of it, you just don't care.
yeah.
So I guess that would be it for our first podcast.
Yeah.
I
Well,
thought we had
you
an
want to
interesting talk about this.
announce what we're doing next week?
All right, yeah. So for next week, we're going to be discussing Charlotte, which is another 13 episode anime. Um, and I think I mean, we'll wait until like next week, but I think this is going to be a lot more interesting conversation than what we had about No Game
Well,
Life, and that
I've never seen it, so you've seen it. So
yeah.
are you gonna rewatch it for this, right? Or do you think
Actually,
you?
I just like the thing is, I just finished watching
Oh,
it
okay.
like 2 days ago, so it's still pretty fresh for me.
Jeez.
I
Okay.
might go back and watch a few episodes here and there just so I can take some notes on it. But
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to that conversation next week.
All right. Well, I guess we'll wrap it up here. So we'll be back next Wednesday live, and if not, it will be back up probably the following Thursday on YouTube or wherever we're gonna post it. So